What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Game Dev Unchained, the #1 game development podcast about game development and the lifestyle thereof. I am your host, Brandon Pham, and with me, my BFF, Leo Gonzalez. How are you doing, Leo?
Pretty good. Getting over some kind of chest cold thing from last week, so sorry if I sound kind of off.
Sound good to us. Well, at least to me. This is the part of the podcast before we get into the meat of the topic and this bi-monthly segment that I'm thinking of us doing. Can you give the good people, you've been on the podcast before a few times, at least once, I think twice.
I think so.
But for the good people out there that haven't caught up to your episode, just a little short synopsis, where you been, where you at, where you heading, just to give them a little love before they invest in you.
Okay. I mean, I'm nobody super interesting or anything. I'm a self-taught game developer and kind of a renaissance man. I like to do lots of different things and build things and tinker with stuff and figure how things work and constantly trying to learn new stuff.
Awesome. For a little background, Leo and I actually are business partners. We own a company. We run a company, GoDemics. I think we mentioned this a few times before. Links is in the show description. But we worked together professionally at a small company way back at Spark. We've actually had a few people from Spark since then on the podcast, and since then forged this great friendship. And now we've been running GoDemics in our 8th year, right? So we've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, going into year 8, yeah. 2017.
And, it is, and we joke about this among ourselves, is it really, to me at least, feels like a second marriage. It is a real testament of our friendship when your finances involved.
I don't know if that's it. That could be a good thing or a really bad thing.
Well, for us, it's a good thing, right? So we took it a step further than a regular friend and develop a real bromance with real finance tied to things.
Yeah.
But anyways, the segment, we talk about these things, and I kind of want to do something different, and hopefully the listeners will respond. We talk mainly about game development, but there's a different passion that I've always had. I am in love with conspiracy, and Leo, coincidentally, and this is why our quote unquote marriage work, also love conspiracy just for the fun of it. We're not like completely 100% believing everything that we see on the internet or a Reddit forum, but it's like one of those fun things as creative. We can totally see it kind of feeding back into what we do every day, right? So we want to dedicate this segment to that, as well as like over the 8 years that we've been in business, we've seen a lot of crazy things that is so hilarious. And at certain times, so many things have happened that I tend to forget until something pops up, and we want to start kind of documenting that. And we want to at least, maybe share a little bit here in this segment just to kind of introduce that part, but also want to advise that anything we share, any fictional characters that may or may not sound like a real person, the names have changed to protect those identities.
Yeah. You gotta change the names to protect the innocent, exactly, or the not so innocent.
Yes. So first off, I want to kick this with John McAfee. I don't know if you know about this, but he's back, right? And for the good people out there, let me kind of provide a synopsis, right? He just popped back on X saying that his account isn't hacked, that he's the real deal, and he's back to report things. John McAfee, most famously, is behind the McAfee antivirus program. He's this eccentric multi-billionaire involved in a lot of controversies, even like the death of his neighbor. Like and he in 2020, he was one of the first.
I think that was in Belize.
Yes, in 2020, he was one of the first to kind of sound the alarm. It was like, don't take the vaccine, no matter what you do. And he's like, that was really early too. And then he mysteriously died shortly after. So let me kind of run down the facts. If you have anything to add to that while I kind of look this up,
Well,
just to make sure the good people know.
big thing I was going to add is what?
Yes. So let me
my
start with that.
Is he passed away already?
I know, right? So this, I'll show. Let me share this. So I saw this yesterday. He posted yesterday. Well, someone on his account posted. But first thing it mentioned was like, this is not hacked.
The first thing somebody at Lie says, this is not a lie.
Let me go to his account right here and share that screen real quick because it was like, it's freaking awesome, dude.
It's like the first thing that somebody says when they do something wrong. It's like, hey, before you find out your car got keyed, it wasn't me. I didn't key it. Just in case you're wondering.
But
yeah, right.
So, let me go to his account right here. All right. So he's been pretty active, right? His latest post is like, I'm back with antivirus, an AI version of myself. You didn't think I would miss this cycle, did you? Do not fall for scam token. So this, whoever took over his account, which I have a hard time believing because Elon Musk is like a huge. So this is the first one he's posted for a while. John's account has not been hacked. This is the real deal. More information forthcoming. And this just happened yesterday.
Right? We're just supposed to trust.
It's a verified account. That is his account.
It's a verified account.
It's actually his account, but not knowing.
So that's a fact. I mean, not separating the person that passed away or whatnot from a X account, right? Just looking at it objectively, like data. So you have an X account that at some point was verified. And how they verify, I guess that's another question. But somehow, after he passed away, in the future, now recently, someone gained control of that verified account, and they are, I guess, masquerading as him or putting out messages.
Yeah,
on behalf
something's
of that
going
account.
on, right? But he's so famous for like the antivirus program. He's like a lot of leaders in public statements about saying like this, like the virus, the COVID vaccines, not taking that. But he is supposedly dead. But yeah, you were mentioning Belize. Do you want to talk more about that? That's something that you know about. Where he
I'm not
one
like
of
an
his
expert in it.
in Belize.
I saw in the news, everything that I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, everyone, if you look into it, it's the same info that, if you look into it, it's the same info that I have, which was that he got into some dispute with a neighbor in Belize. The allegation is that he ended up shooting the neighbor and then went on the run. Ended up in Spain.
Yes.
I don't know if he went anywhere, if he went from Belize to Spain or if he went from Belize to, question mark and then eventually ended up in Spain. But I know because he was in the news a lot. Very colorful character.
Yeah. He eventually ended up in Spain, got arrested in Spain in 2020 for tax evasion.
Tax evasion.
Yes. Yeah. Despite earning millions from cryptocurrency. So, I mean, this whole thing, his death was ruled by suicide, of course.
Going back to the Spain thing, and I'm just thinking out loud here. Why would you, if you know the IRS is after you or whoever's after you, right, from the US, why would you go to an extradition treaty country like Spain?
Yeah.
What is the assumption that somehow Spain's going to make an exception for you and not hand you over? Obviously, they're going to arrest you and wait for, U.S. Marshals or whoever to arrive to transfer you back to the U.S., right, to New York or wherever they take you. Like, why would you go to Spain? That makes no sense.
Yeah. I mean, it was just one of those.
Maybe we can ask. Maybe we can, since he's alive again somehow, why you die? Let's ask. Like, hey, man.
Before you die.
Cool tip on the vaccine, but why'd you go to Spain?
Yeah.
Did you not know they would arrest you?
Yeah.
I don't know. Just
Hey, Leo, I want to talk to you about this idea of mental wealth. I know you've been having trouble sleeping. Insomniac is a very uh, recurring problem that you're trying to get under control. Well, Magic Mind just came out with a new product called a sleep elixir that helps fix your sleep. They've always been good about long-term mental resilience, and they talk about the idea of mental wealth, which kind of boils down to 5 key things, which is sleep, diet, exercise, stress management, and exogenous compounds, right? Exogenous compounds is a fancy word that contains 3 main subjects: nootropic, which is supplements that help with focus and mental clarity; adaptogens, which are herbs like ashwagandha that will help match stress; and nutritional supplements, stuff like omega-3s and your magnesium that supports brain health. For me, working in all these areas is a game changer. So one of the things that really helped me stay on track, again, is Magic Mind, right? They have their main elixir that helps with mental focus and gives you the extra boost of the day. And then at night, you take the sleep elixir that actually helps me wind down. In turn, will definitely help you. And it's just as important as staying productive. So Magic Mind has this awesome new bundle where you can grab both the mental performance shot and the sleep elixir all together. You can check it out at magicmind.com/GDUJAN. Again, that's magicmind.com/GDUJAN. You can get 45% off this bundle, and it is guaranteed to be a great addition to your routine. So if you're working and trying to work on your mental wealth, give it a try. And Leah, I'm going to grab you some. It's just among the many lists of like weird things that's been going on in the past 6 months, right? But you know, I just wanted to kind of start off with that because that was fresh off. But the real meat of conspiracy, the things that everyone is hearing about, but no one is really talking too much about, right? At least in the regular circles, is the aliens, man. All right. So the egg thing that's happening, supposedly you watched the 1-hour episode that they made like a huge promotional push.
A lot of people.
Yeah.
It's an hour I'll never get back. I'm just going to say that.
So it was just like those useless UFO documentaries, right? That just dragged on for an hour. Did they show the footage at the beginning at least, or did they show it at the end, like a big payoff?
And I think a lot of people will understand what I'm about to say, but long story short, Ross Coulthard, is that how you say it? Coulthard? Sure. Ross has officially become, in my opinion, the M. Night Shyamalan of journalism.
Yeah.
You know, M. Night Shyamalan should not be allowed to make movies. I know he's got fans out there. I don't care. I hate his movies. I think he's an expert trailer guy, like a hook guy. Like M. Night Shyamalan can make the most badass trailers, previews, and he can hook you in. And you're just like, wow, this movie looks awesome. Can't wait to go watch it. You go watch it, and every time you come out of the movie theater, just want to punch something. Just, I want my money back. This was garbage. Usually his endings really suck. That's what M. Night Shyamalan's known for. I can't pronounce his last name. Whatever.
Yeah.
But Ross Coulthard's actually becoming him. He's constantly like, well, I got this new announcement coming out, new special on News Nation. Here we go, world changing stuff. And then you watch it and you're just like, huh?
Yeah.
Where's the big reveal? Where's this? Where's that? He just kind of leaves you hooked in. And then, 6 months later, another special gets announced and you're just like, all right, this is it. This is it. We're going to find out if we're alone in the universe. We're going to find out if the government's been lying to us. We're going to find out what this tech is or who got assassinated to keep this a secret. Nope. Nothing. Not a thing.
Yeah.
And that's what happened.
I mean, they were building it up. Even mainstream news kept saying the disclosures happening. This past year and a half, especially, it's been like such a big headline grabber among many things that's been happening. I saw the footage. Everyone by now, if you're connected to the internet, have slightest interest in this. It's literally a green night vision video footage of an egg being picked
Green
up.
filter and After Effects.
Yeah, it looks super lame, right? And what's funny too is like that same guy that's promoting this stuff. Well, before that, there's this guy with the guy, another famous UFO insider, right? And it was like, hey, better watch out. In the coming days, they're gonna say there's gonna be an object approaching Earth, and that we got to prepare ourselves. And it's a way to kind of
Isn't that Jeremy Corbell? That's
Corbell
posted that on X. Yeah.
So Corbell,
I like him.
I do like him because he seems like he knows a lot. He has like that Alex Jones thing where he's like, I'm going fucking crazy knowing what I know, right? And I was like, I want to listen to that guy.
I don't know if that's a good comparison.
Well, it's better than the other guy.
I don't want to discredit the guy like that.
The Elizondo guy, he looks too relaxed. You know what I mean? And I was like, yeah, we got an egg.
Yeah. Elizondo, yeah, he's kind of, man. Lately, I don't know. I feel like the psyops happening in the media, that's a whole different thing, is starting to shift towards a narrative of Elizondo's in on something. He's part of disinformation. That's what I keep seeing. Yeah. And I kind of caught myself parroting that. And I'm like, wait a minute. It's the aggregate of all of the media now trying to, paint this narrative of Elizondo. So him, I'm not. At first, I believed him. I was like, oh, man, like whistleblower. And he seems pretty legit. Yeah. And I started seeing all this other stuff coming out about that. Hey, he might actually be part of a campaign. But then it's like, oh, man, it's like conspiracy theory inside the conspiracy theory. Yeah, You're just like DiCaprio when he's spinning the top in Inception. It's like, what's real? So I don't know. Elizondo, I'm kind of like half and half. I'm on the fence. I'm kind of waiting for something big to happen, or not big, but significant, where I'm like, oh, that's the smoking gun. They caught him. He is still working for the Pentagon, and he is still part of disinformation. Because that's what they did with Project Blue Book back in the day. With what's his face? So I'm good at researching this stuff, but I'm terrible at memorizing people's names. Mm-hmm. So this guy, what's his name?
Is he the main researcher?
Hayek, the main guy that they got for Project Blue Book back in the day, who quit Blue Book because he basically Captain what he said was
Rappel?
No. He's got one of those like H.L. Hymek or something like that. The people will know I'm butchering it. Anyway, he got brought on to be the lead for Project Blue Book back in the 50s, 60s or whatever, and he actually quit Project Blue Book because he thought at the beginning when the government brought him in for that, the Air Force, that it was a legitimate attempt to explain UFOs, UAP at the time, but they call them UFOs. And once he saw that was not the function or the main purpose of Blue Book, he quit because he was like, "You're wasting my time. You're hurting my reputation. You're going to
Dr. J. Allen Hynek.
I don't want to be." Yeah, Allen Hynek. Yeah. So he got upset because of that, because he felt like they used him. So what I mean by that is, if you look into Blue Book at first on the surface to the public was pitched as a kind of like Arrow now, right? Or ATIP before Arrow, which was where Elizondo came from, right? Very recently. Blue Book was designed to supposedly investigate, get to the bottom of, and find out what the UFO phenomenon was back in the 50s and stuff. And it was supposed to be so that the public could find out too, right? It's almost like the government saying, like, we're with you guys. We're not against you. Let's figure this thing out together. But then it was revealed through like memos that leaked and stuff. And if you want to go down a rabbit hole, you can research this and you start kind of spinning in circles because it's kind of crazy. It reads like something out of an episode of X-Files. But spoiler alert, the long story short, the DOD wanted the Air Force to do Blue Book because the end goal was already decided. So what that means is that before Blue Book even started, they had already decided we'll create this thing called Blue Book. It'll be a PR thing so that people calm down and they think that the government is doing its job. But at the end, we already know what the ending of the story is going to be, that UFOs are nothing more than people seeing things, people being confused, fake reports, and there's nothing to see here. There are no UFOs. It's weather balloons, blah, 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 that kind of thing. Side note, you're seeing that now with the New Jersey drones, right? Everyone's being told by the FAA and DHS, at least since, November, when people started mass reporting these things in the Northeast, right? Not just New Jersey, but New York as well, and other areas in the Northeast. It's so fresh that you can just go on YouTube and look up, November and December press conferences by Mayorkas, the head of DHS at the time, and the head of FAA, literally telling news hosts on CNN, Fox, doesn't matter if it's left or right wing media, they're saying the same message. People are just confused. We looked into it. There's nothing to see here. The FBI conclusively says there's, people are just confused, right? Lots of people in the Northeast for whatever reason. So they're just brushing it off. That's what Blue Book was. And that's why Hynek quit when he realized, wait a minute, you guys aren't really interested in this is a PR thing to calm down the public about these UFO sightings. Because in the 50s, they had the flyover over the White House and the Capitol building, which is well documented by, credible media sources at the time. Those UFOs that flew at, you could look into it. I don't have the exact details in front of me, but supposedly there are documented, it's documented that radar caught flying objects in formation flying over the capital of the United States, most powerful country at the time, in the 50s, over a period of 2 weekends, flying, I believe, more than 1,000 miles an hour or thousands of miles an hour. And fighter, I guess you can call them jets. We had pretty primitive fighter planes at the time. We got over propeller-based planes, right? Like the P-51 Mustang and all of that from World War II. We were transitioning to aircraft that were jet-powered, right? Not like today's jet turbine engines, which are more advanced, but they were starting to move over to that technology. But they couldn't keep up. They got left behind. It was like a Tesla outrunning an ant, like no chance.
Yeah. And this event you're referring to is referred to as the Washington.
Well, you can look at it. It's pretty important. Yeah. It's over a period of 2 weekends that this happened back to back.
1952.
So 52. And the US government was kind of freaking out because it was like, after it happened the second time, it was like, oh crap, this is the beginning of something, big. And then it just didn't happen anymore, which is kind of weird. These craft didn't do anything. They didn't land. They didn't attack or interfere with anything. One time is a surprise. 2 times over the same place, back-to-back weekends, is a pattern. Yeah, for sure. So what these things were, why they were doing that, and why they decided to do it 2 weekends in a row.
Some objects reportedly reaching speeds of up to 7,000 miles per hour.
Yeah. So nobody had that technology at the time. I think we can say that.
Yeah.
Today it's kind of tricky because technology is so advanced, right? Who knows what the heck Lockheed Martin and all these companies, Northrop Grumman and all these companies have. Or Raytheon, which Raytheon I believe isn't called Raytheon anymore. I forgot their new name. They went through some acquisitions and mergers, but today, technology is pretty advanced. China's gotten pretty advanced.
Drones.
Russia and China have invested a lot into hypersonic technology.
Yeah.
So who knows? And now it's kind of a question mark. But in the 50s, come on, like 1952, for somebody to be like, well, maybe Lockheed Martin has a 7,000 mile per hour aircraft that doesn't fall apart and somehow can carry enough fuel to go that fast. Because when you go that fast, you need more fuel, a lot of it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's weird.
Well, it's definitely worth knowing, going back to what you're saying, all these, like, because me and you especially, have been super interested in UFO for a while before it got cool, right?
I was not.
Oh, you weren't?
You remember.
All right.
I was very skeptical. I still am, but
he's still skeptical. I was always into it. I saw a UFO. I don't know if I mentioned the story. Well, I told you, right? I'll tell the listeners. It was me and my wife driving down Huntington Beach in California, Orange County, down PCH, which is right next to the beach. And my wife was the one that noticed it first. She looked out the window and she's like, what is that? That's not normal. I looked out and I was like, is that the top of a skyscraper? But then quickly realized, it's on the beach. There's no building on the beach, on the sands. And so I was like, and she was like, that's a UFO. That's and it looked huge. It was as if, the best way I describe it, if you hold your fist out in the sky, that's how big it looked like to us, right? It wasn't one of those zippity zaps that you see lights, those crappy footages, right?
Could you tell how far away if you had to estimate?
No, that's the thing. It was over the beach, so there was no.
It's like over the ocean.
Well, not yet. Actually, at this point, it was just over the parking lot. So,
oh damn! So it wasn't something over the horizon in the ocean, kind of like when you go to San Diego and you see all of the, the cruisers and the aircraft carriers, because it's a Navy town, right? You see them out in the distance, and that's what I was imagining. But you're talking about this thing was
no, it was clearly above where the sands are, right? But like way up in the sky. Unfortunately, there wasn't anything to kind of be next to it, like a building to kind of put it scale. So I can't tell how big it was, but just it being in the sky, it looked big to me. Not sure how many miles it was. So we pulled it alongside on the parking lot. Of course, that's what you do, right? Other than chasing it. And it just hovered, went towards us. And what's funny, what I realized then is, like, when you see something like that, your first instinct is just shock. That's where I was. Funny enough, I was working at XCOM at that time, so we were working on an alien UFO game at that time. And it wasn't my first inclination to whip out the phone to record it. And then the second thing I noticed is, like, there was people, there was cars driving, and even skateboarders, riding down the parking lot in the opposite direction. No one was looking up. It was like obviously in the clear night sky, no clouds, no sound. But it felt like me and her were the only ones that saw this or were watching it. And then it did like a
yell out to anybody, like, dude, what the heck is that? And
no, I was just like,
you're just stunned.
Just stunned, man. Just seeing it.
Deer in the headlights.
Yeah, and
those are usually the first ones to get abducted.
Yeah, exactly.
Probed.
If we were alone, no doubt we would have been abducted.
Dodged a bullet, cosmic bullet.
Get anal probed and everything. But like, it looked like a sombrero hat with
not me.
revolving. It looked like an 80s UFO craft, which was the other. It wasn't that sleek UFO that you're kind of used to it, right? And it had a revolving, like, cheap 80s VHS, like, blinking lights, right? So we saw that. That's how close
Kit
it was
from Knight Rider.
Yeah,
the little red light.
It was basically just a little distance away from. I felt like I could see the surface, right? It was just a little further than that, and we were able to just spot out the bright stuff on it. And it would hover, did like a U-turn, and then it went over the ocean finally. And then that's when we saw it just go and disappear in the horizon. And it's a very common thing, especially with the New Jersey drones that we were just mentioning. A lot of these people will see coming from the ocean. Even the mayor now that Trump is finally.
Well, even police officers.
But like after Trump is inaugurated now the mayor's coming out. It's like, yeah, I've seen these freaking drones look like bright lights. And then as it got closer, it morphed into a drone-like craft. So that was pretty interesting, because I think before this, we were all like, yeah, must be Chinese. These are obviously.
Yeah, I think that was the mayor of Belleville, New Jersey.
Yeah. So he mentioned something like that, and people are a little bit more open, and they're still going on. That's the thing. It's like it hasn't stopped. If anything, it ramped up the last few days. And there haven't been a clear explanation from anybody about what it
No.
is. Still,
Trump said he's going to shoot them down.
I mean, I think they're probably trying to by this point. They have to.
Yeah, he got inaugurated Monday.
Yeah.
And today is Thursday.
Yeah.
Haven't heard of any attempts to shoot him down.
Why not shooting down by now, right? So these drones are dangerous because they're over airspace. They don't know what it is. They're over military structures and stuff. And
well, they're over the U.S., period. If there's unidentified drones that are evading local law enforcement counter drone actions.
Yeah, and I mean, everyone's describing it as like SUV size. It's huge.
I just imagine if people did that on the ground. So an example, like an analogy would be in New Jersey, if there was groups of unmarked cars with no license plates for identifying things, right? And they're driving around the freeways, going past the speed limit, driving the wrong way of the road, basically not following any traffic laws. And the police went to go chase them, and then they outran the police somehow, and the police can't catch them, can't do anything to counter them. They drop spike strips. These things somehow eat up the spike strips. They just go through them, and their tires don't blow. They don't get affected by them. The police can't stop them, right? What would happen next?
Yeah.
Well, state police, right? You got local police, sheriff's department, or, municipal police or whatever, right? Depending on the city or the town. State police would be called in. If they couldn't do anything, well, then the FBI comes in, or DHS, right? If they can't do anything, National Guard, whatever, if they can't do anything, and this gang of these blacked out Mustangs that can't be stopped and nobody can identify them, it wouldn't just be allowed to continue. Right, taking over the freeways and stuff, because that's what these things do. In that one case that I forgot which airport it was in New York, because the mayor of New York, what's her name, Catherine Hochul, or whatever her name is, she got mad and did a press conference where she called out, this was like just before New Year's, she called out the Biden administration. It was like, what the heck's going on? Like, we had an airport literally have to stop takeoffs and interrupt airport operations because the drones are with impunity flying over. The airspace around airports is considered sacred. Like, you're not news. If you're a news station and you got, the newscopter, Channel 5, looking at traffic or following like some disaster, you're not allowed to fly over an airport or even near it. There's a buffer, right? It's restricted airspace. The drones are doing whatever. So back to my example, if there's a gang of these blacked out Mustangs, doing donuts and peeling out of not just parking lots, but in the middle of I-95 and stuff with impunity, no one can stop them. Like, it wouldn't just be business as usual. It would be a serious problem. So I don't know why the drones are being allowed to, do whatever they want.
Yeah. And that's why I think it feeds into the narrative that the government knows what these are because they're so relaxed about these threats.
They either know what they are or they know they can't stop them.
And I guess whatever is causing the inaction or just basically non-commentary. Because I don't know what's worse, to say that we don't know what they are, we have no control to stop them, to cause, quote unquote panic.
It's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad. But to also act, and like a lot of government officials have said, we don't know what these are already. It's just, on the federal level, there hasn't really been too much attention about or too much worry. And that's what's confusing to a lot of people. Is like, it keeps going, it keeps happening, it's still happening. And everyone's just going about their day. And it seems like, I don't know, it's weird messaging. Like, something's going on. You were mentioning like a huge with Project Blue Book and all these things, there's always been a big disinformation campaign.
There's
right?
nothing to see here.
Nothing to
You're
see
confused.
here. And like these people, Elizondo, Corbell, even Stephen Greer, right? These are like people that we know for the past 20 years. It feels like they're always like on the fringe of UFO activity. They've always been like, oh, it's the same guy with the crazy fro on those ancient aliens. Is like it's aliens, right? And it's like one of those like no
With
one
the
takes serious.
memes.
It's just for entertainment,
Aliens
right?
must have done it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, but like up to this point, they've always felt like on the same side. It's part of the same small community, right? And the last 6 months, it's the first time where I'm seeing someone who have done great things seem to be part of a different camp now. It's like it's being divided, maybe purposely,
Mhm.
it sounds like. And underlying all of that, it just suggests that something's happening where these bros are fighting amongst themselves. It's such a small community. And they can't.
Which bros are you talking about?
So
fighting who?
Well, this is another thing. So going back to Corbell, right? Corbell was like a few days ago on his own hour special was saying that be careful 2025, 2026, right? They're going to say by 2027 a large object, right, that is non-human, obviously, is going to be approaching Earth, and then US or the world is going to respond by upping our war defenses to unite, under one government to fight this threat. And he's also saying that this is all going to be fake. This is not real. Right? It's an illusion to
You must have seen the special on Project Bluebeam.
Yeah.
That's
so he
maybe
said that
he saw something to change his mind. That happens.
But that, with his crazy eyes, right? And he's just like, I never sleep. How can I sleep? I know too much, I was like, I trust that guy. And then at the same time, days later, because this is the first time I've heard of that, right? The 2027 doomsday. Well, like, it wasn't even doomsday. It didn't really say like aliens are going to come. It's just like a large unidentified object. It's going to approach Earth. We're going to acknowledge it as a species, and we're going to, group our efforts, right? And it's like, oh, this is interesting. I never heard of this, right? I've heard of 2012. I heard of all this other stuff. I've heard of Nibiru, right? But this is like, man, that's pretty close. This is a couple years. It's a couple NFL seasons right there. But then days later, like almost to on cue, right? Luis Elizondo comes out with his special saying that we have a large unidentified object that is approaching in 2027, and we need to and that's why I felt like Elizondo switched sides or it's a psyop within a psyop, like he said, is like Corbell anticipating this as a disclosure is like
psyop
preemptively.
Psyop me.
Yeah, preemptively denouncing his credibility by announcing it first, knowing that he was going to. I don't know, but like it is definitely confusing.
Wait.
I thought those guys were
saying that?
Yeah.
So you're saying that the timeline is Corbell announced that there would be an announcement of a UFO, whatever, and to not believe it because it's fake, propagate, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then timeline wise, at some point after that, Luis Elizondo comes out and says
on cue
an announcement of what the first announcement was supposed to be.
Yeah.
But he says he's right. He's saying there is an alien.
It is happening. Yeah.
Thing coming.
And then the egg thing came out, which is super lame in my opinion. It doesn't show anything. And then at the same time, Stephen Greer, like there's only 4 people, right? Really, of this community who are like the Neil, who's that physicist, Neil deGrasse Tyson, right? Yeah, so the Neil deGrasse Tyson
really
of
good
UFO
friends
technology.
With Howard.
Yeah. So these guys are kind of that of the UFO community. Stephen Greer immediately comes out and said, hey, we're at that point where we can make shit that resemble UFOs, right? That looks non-human. This egg thing is fake as shit, right? That's what he said in his own interview. And he said that, but like people who are familiar with the documentation, that have been in this field for 20 years, that have whistleblowers, can spot the difference. But to the naked eye of a regular person, they won't be able to. But we know and can see the difference. And that egg that you guys see is fake. It's man-made, nothing special. I don't know why they put it out. There's something going on. The misinformation thing is disinformation thing is in full effect. So like there's those three guys that I've seen over 20 years. There's this weird infighting, it feels like, that I've never seen before. Mm-hmm. And they've built such a huge community behind them. And to get this point where it feels like, I don't know, people are more open to this now than ever. They're fighting against each other instead of uniting. Like, this is our time to shine type of thing. It's really odd. Like, I don't understand it. I mean, maybe the mastermind behind this is like that good, right? They somehow got these guys to get their own 1 hour specials, just constantly like, shitting on each other's facts because within steps, they're all kind of saying everyone's wrong, right? It's wild. I've never seen that before in my history of just being.
It might be the same people behind the referee crew on the Chiefs Texans game last week.
Why? A
lot of people know what I'm talking about. Yeah,
it's super legal, dude. It's super cool.
It's like, don't look at Patrick Mahomes. He might fly across the room and you'll get penalized. I don't know if you saw that game.
I saw that flop, that massive flop that he did.
Super flop. I was like, no, don't put flops.
Dude,
in
all
football.
season I've seen
screwed up soccer.
And what I'm hearing a lot is like, Mahomes is super awesome as a football player, right? But he's doing stuff this season where it's kind of losing a lot of people's respect. Like, you don't need to do that. You're such a great player.
No, man. I think flopping ruins soccer, at least for me. I hate it when guys flop in soccer. I'm just like, come on, man. The guy was 3 feet away.
Yeah.
And
he fell
on the ground, rolled 3 times, and you're holding your knee like that Family Guy, that famous Family Guy episode where he's like,
well, there was that other call too where it was clearly a fumble and they just ruled it as a personal foul within. Was he throwing a ball? He hit his hand out of Mahomes. The ball out of Mahomes' throwing motion. It was clearly a fumble, but they ruled it as a personal foul, ruining Texans. Momentum.
There was a lot of
going on with the world, man.
Pretty obvious. Obvious. Like, it's not even, you don't even have to go in slow motion, analyze, and like, maybe, like, these were very clear. But anyway, I was just joking that the conspiracy guys are the same ones behind hiring the referees for that game.
The winning narrative is, it's working, right? I myself are getting so desensitized to this UFO stuff.
I think everybody is. Right? It's become the norm, especially when they start doing congressional hearings about it.
Yeah, but also like this feeding of AI videos is like, I don't know what could possibly real. Like, how can anything real get through all this crap that you can make up now, right?
Can't.
Yeah, you can't decipher.
We've crossed the point of no return.
Yeah, so it's very hard. Like, even the guys that I've always followed, who've always been super fringe and like anti-societal norms, are fighting against each other. It's like, who do I believe now? This guy says this egg is real. This egg ain't real. This egg looks like shit. Like, this is the best we got, right? When they said, man, this is going to blow your mind, UFO retrieval, it's going to showcase on network television. I was like, all right, awesome. Roswell.
I blame that on Ross, though. Ross does a little sensationalist. Yeah. I respect his work. I actually think he's doing a really good job of doing the stuff that mainstream, media and journalists won't touch. even come near. And maybe I don't know. I mean, it'd be a question for him. I can't speak for him, but there might be like a subconscious feeling of like, I got to overcompensate because this is not something, people are more interested in like, oh, did Taylor Swift make it to the Chiefs game or whatever? I keep knocking on the Chiefs. People seem more interested in stuff like that than, this other stuff. So maybe there's a subconscious sense of like, I have to overcompensate. So I'm going to build up this next special that's coming up and a big reveal. Right. And if that is what's happening, my advice, if I gave it, would be, you don't have to do that. The story kind of sells itself. If you do that, you're actually hurting the story. You're hurting the data that you're trying to reveal to people. Because now people are going to think it's the M. Night Shyamalan effect, right? If the movie's good, let people, watch it. But if the movie's bad, don't put out an awesome trailer, because then people are going to slowly stop watching your movies. You're going to become a less credible director.
Yeah.
The same thing with like Ross and being a journalist. If you use up your budget of trust and
credibility
and that sort of thing, people like believing in you and stuff, eventually people are just not, the next time you want to reveal something or whatever, people are just like, oh man, it's that Ross guy again, click, switch channels, and stuff like that. So
there seems to definitely be a real push about getting these guys to discredit themselves live on television. Like, it's working to me now. It's like,
I think it's a real thing. Yeah. Let's trick, right? And I'm sure Ross is a smart guy and he vets as much as he can, but nobody's perfect. I'm sure the net that he has is not impenetrable, and he'll get bad information that comes through on purpose from nefarious government actors that are tasked with feeding, false info to the media, which is a real thing. You can look back in history, not just with UFOs, but with like war reporting, geopolitical reporting. Look at good example, the war in Iraq, right? Back where Cheney and Bush were like, we think there's weapons of mass destruction, yellow cake, uranium, whatever, in Baghdad. And it turned out there wasn't, right? But you feed the narrative to the media, some of them don't do their due diligence and eat it up and then regurgitate it back to us, the masses. And then we do the same. We don't fact check or anything. We just, if CNN said it, it must be true. And then, the guys that started that whole daisy chain, they kind of, in their office or whatever, they kind of go, yes, it worked. Our PSYOP worked. Everyone believes this. Everyone's going left. We can go right. Everyone's going up. We can go down. No one's going to see us in the shadows doing this or that or whatever rug they're trying to pull out right from underneath you. So,
well, you mentioned it, and now I have to talk about it. Right, the Iraq War. There's a conspiracy about why that happened. Right, and the one that's being thrown out is that archaeologists, right before the war started in early 2003, like a team of German-led archaeologists, believe they found the tomb of Gilgamesh, right? Ancient Sumerian king. Oh, who was Gilgamesh again?
Maybe was Gilgamesh a person or a place? I always thought, I'm ignorant on the topic. I thought I've heard that, the Epic of Gilgamesh and this and that. I thought it was a place, a location, but I don't know anything really about it.
When you look it up,
I've heard, the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is supposed to be
right. So the Epic of Gilgamesh is supposed to be a legendary person connected to the mythos in the ancient Mesopotamian culture. So Gilgamesh is known as a king of the Sumerian city of Uruk.
Oh, okay.
All right. In 2700 BC. So he's a central figure, and one of the earliest great works of literature known to humanity. So they believe they found that tomb shortly after, and there was something that was happening. They found a tomb of something, and then shortly after the Iraq War started. And so a lot of that was get there and straight up like German Nazi style, go into these like ancient
Indiana
civilizations.
Jones,
Yeah.
Ark of
And
the Covenant.
there seems to be a significance in a lot of these ancient cultures that holds still a lot of weight to modern society, right? So that have always been like a fun conspiracy about the
I
Iraq
never heard
War.
about that one.
That one was a popular
Is that a
one. I've heard
fact?
a lot.
Is that a fact that, like, is there a timeline that can be established through facts of, because the Iraq War, I believe, and I'm probably wrong about this, I think it officially launched in 2003, if I remember right.
Yes. Yep.
Obviously, we went into Afghanistan first, right after 9/11.
Yeah.
That was priority one. And then over the next few years, the narrative was established that we also have to go into Iraq, take down Hussein because he's trying to develop, WMDs. Cheney was a huge pusher for that,
Which he wasn't,
for
right?
for obvious reasons that showed up later. In the moment, you can't tell. Later, once time passes, historically, you can look back and see the big picture and go, "Oh,
yeah,
that sucks."
Well, it's trackable because there were media coverage about that archaeology report, right? There's BBC News, other media outlets like ABC News, highlighting the potential significance of the find. And the discovery was announced around April 2003, just before the invasion of the U.S.
Oh, wow. April 2003.
Invasion of Iraq by the U.S. Yep.
And when was the actual invasion of Iraq? When were operations actually kicked off?
Of Iraq War. I think you were
May
right, late 2003. Let me get the exact date.
The next day.
The invasion of Iraq, commonly referred to, began on March 20th, 2003. Was led by a coalition force spearheaded by the United States, with the aim at removing Saddam Hussein.
Oh, so the war. So technically, the war was first, then the discovery of this Gilgamesh thing. Or his tomb. You said it's they found the tomb of
Gilgamesh.
I guess
who they believe was
Gilgamesh.
Okay, no, allegedly 2000. It keeps going back and forth. Was after the start of the Iraq War on March 20th. Therefore, the Iraq War began before the announcement of the discovery of the tomb of Gilgamesh. But
okay.
I mean, so it's one of those things. It's like it's not like someone running to BBC right when they like dust off some shit, right? I mean, that gets through the channels to the right people way before April announcement. We don't get things off the press for things like that usually.
Well, I mean, same could be said about like the war, right? Just because it kicked off March whatever of 2003,
right?
There had been planning ahead
on
of
the
time,
ground
so
around that time.
So I don't know about that one.
That one I
want to say debunked.
Not debunked. Tomb of Gilgamesh, man, Sumerians. You don't think we stopped?
Well, what would be what's the conspiracy theory? I don't think it's debunked that they found the tomb, right? There's archaeological digs happening, throughout our times, right? There's still, just because they found X amount of pyramids in Giza doesn't mean they just stop. I know that there's a season, I forgot when it is. There's a certain time of year where in Egypt, I forgot what they call it. They call it like archaeological season or whatever it is. I guess a certain time of year it's favorable, the weather or something, to do archaeological digs. But yeah, every year they're digging in Egypt,
finding things.
Yeah, because there's still so much more to find, and they still find new stuff all the time in Egypt. So that's like a global thing. They're still looking for stuff. So maybe it's just a coincidence that they found that when the war happened. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, it is a conspiracy. What is the conspiracy? That the tomb of Gilgamesh, that there's some ancient technology there that they found?
Well, ancient treasures, ancient valuables that pretty important. That is more useful than dirt. I mean, any tomb would probably have something
Yeah.
pretty important.
But I mean, I guess a skeptic could say, well, why wasn't Egypt invaded by the U.S. when they found, like, the tomb of whoever, right? Khufu or whatever, right?
They took everything already.
Yeah. Unless the tomb had something more significant. I don't think.
Well,
The
Sumerian
US
civilization is supposedly the oldest first written society. Right?
Well, I think that's already been debunked recently.
Okay. Who's before the
I mean,
Sumerians? I think, like, officially they're still.
I don't even think they have a name, to be honest. Like, for example, ancient Sumeria goes back. I'm not saying it's not old, or I don't want to say old makes it sound derogative, like it's no good or something like that. But previous, right? The most previous civilization or country, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, they already discovered, what is it? Göbekli Tepe, or I'm butchering the name again as usual, but in Turkey, they found that one place buried under a mound, and they've been able to use carbon dating and stuff to find that it's, again, I'm terrible at remembering names and numbers. I'm a visual person. But that changed the history books when they discovered it in, I think in 2012 or something like that. It's pretty recent that they discovered this in Turkey. And if you look at it, it's interesting because it's not just one mound. At first, they thought it was like, oh, look, there's this ancient site that predates everything. It goes way beyond ancient Sumeria, like way beyond, not by a couple of hundred years, but literally by like tens of thousands of years.
So the emergence of the Sumerian civilization was 4500 BCE. And then
that's not
what
that
they're
long
dating
ago.
back to Göbekli Tepe is twice that, 10,000 BCE.
I've even read as much as 12,000 or more.
Yeah, it could be as much as 12,000 in some of these. Sites.
And the thing with that site is they found that one by accident.
Yeah,
I think it was like a farmer or something that accidentally found it.
Always
and now that they know it's there and they start digging it up, they found more. Supposedly there's like hundreds of acres around that area where there's more of those. And they don't know if the one that they did find, the one that they found first, that they already know is about 12,000 years old, they don't know if that's the oldest one. They're thinking that maybe there's older ones, and then, people that came along built on top of it, or like did restoration, stuff like that, right? I guess like how people would do now, right? Like if you look at, I don't know, let's just pick a random place, Mexico City. Modern day Mexico City is where Aztec ruins are. They built them right there. If you went back in time in a time machine, you'd find an Aztec civilization, right? And the Aztecs are not that old. They don't go back like 25,000 years or anything like that, anything crazy. But if you took an Aztec from those days and they went in a time machine, went to the future, which would be now, right? They would find this like metropolis, this city with like lights and these cars, these metal things driving around, making, funny noises, and planes and all kinds of stuff. And Mexico's a big city. It's one of the largest cities in the world today.
Yep.
It's a huge metropolis. So we tend to build stuff on top of old stuff.
Yeah.
So if someone found Mexico City, I don't know, in 5,000 years, right? And they started unearthing the ruins because stuff gets buried, right, over time, they'd be like, wow, look, there was like a metropolis here. And they would also find the Aztec pyramids. It would be hard for them without any type of evidence to know, hey, you know what? The Aztec pyramids came a long time before this other stuff, right? The Mexican soccer stadium that you unearthed, they're not the same civilization.
Yeah.
It's not the same city. Another one was built on top. So it's the same thing with ancient stuff that we find. How do we know that what we found that's 12,000 years old is the oldest? We don't know that.
Right.
So, could
Well,
be
I mean,
older.
we're hitting the hour mark. This was a primer to a series of interesting talks about conspiracy and other things. But I kind of want to conclude this with what is, and we talked about this many times, and I agree with you. And this leads right into it. The leading theory that you're signing off to, with all these UAPs, all these super ancient civs, like what are these things that we're seeing? Is it from outer space? Is it underground? Are we version 8.0, Neo style, Um, just to tie everything up, it might lead into the next time when we talk.
It's a big rabbit hole, and it would take a long time. But I have a, a theory with a lot of circumstantial evidence that, long story short, the U.S. government was not the first, but they found and acquired ancient tech that allowed huge leaps in advancement in technological dominance, and that's what we're seeing. And perhaps China, just like they steal a lot of trademarks, a lot of technology from international businesses, a lot of them, they target the US a lot. There's a good chance they got their hands on some of that. And they're, developing their own branch of this tech. And that's what we're seeing. It's the most logical, statistically mathematical answer that makes the most sense.
Yeah. No, I agree, man. I do think like a large percentage of all this is definitely human tech. That was uh, re-engineered, right, from alien tech to kind of fit our needs. And something that you mentioned the other day, and I hear a lot of times, the leap and bounds that we took from the 1900 to now, from just having a plane to shooting a rocket to space, is more than anything in the thousands of years of human technology, right? And it's not appreciated enough. And there's also parallel theories of, yes, we're an advanced technology, but there's several branches of advanced technology. We just took this one mainly for entertainment with iPhones, but other Mayans, techs, even Atlantis, all this stuff, they advance in their own way, more objectively, probably, to kind of achieve what they wanted to. Maybe the iPhone isn't like a step for every advanced branch of for a civilization to take, right? Space travel is probably more important, and that's something where we're trying to catch up on finally, getting back on track. But yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting things. I'm super excited. So many things are coming out, like too much now, where I have a hard time catching up. Right? I'm like kind of zone into this UFP stuff. It's like, all right, it sounds like the New Jersey drones are at least going to be answered soon, or what they are, or at least acknowledge federally that we have no idea what these are. We talk to China, they don't know what it is. Something's going on, right?
They wouldn't
high
tell
alert.
you.
Yeah, they would tell you. But now John McAfee's back and throwing another curve.
He's back.
I was like, I thought this guy's dead. How wild would that be if the whole time it's like, no, man, I'm still alive.
He faked it. It's
Man,
really
I don't know.
a
Where's the
dead body
body?
double that they found.
Dude, it's been done before. And if anyone was to do it, it would be John McAfee. That guy's crazy, dude. So
that guy would do something like that.
He would totally do something like that, dude.
Because and then get bored.
The interview
and be like,
before his death.
Circuit.
The interview before his death is like super like wild. I don't know if you've seen that one.
But well, I do know that he did say before he quote unquote died that if he ever did die, that it wasn't a suicide or anything.
Yeah.
To not believe it, basically.
Yep.
If he died, that's what he said.
I mean, that alone is like, yo.
So
Yeah, let me find the exact quote just to kind of fill up.
Probably hanging out, having drinks with the guy that created Bitcoin.
Yeah, he was swinging a lot of cryptocurrency before he died too. Finally, okay, so in one of his last recorded interviews, mentioned as being with his wife, Denise, in May 2020. That's how recent it's been. He continued to assert his innocence, discussed the corruption with the government. He seemed optimistic about his legal situation, planning to appeal and fight the charges against him, and said that any subject about suicide will be false.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, man, this is a high suspect for sure. But I think he would be like that kind of guy who would be able to like sidestep attempted
Yeah.
murder.
He probably lives like in a private yacht
He has
or
the money, he has the means, dude. And he
a
seems to be,
decommissioned submarine.
because one of the legendary thing, he was able to kind of gain access to a lot of this secret information. I mean, he's McAfee, right? I mean, he's known as the antivirus of being in there and being able to like do whatever he wants, in the digital world. So I wouldn't put it past him that he kind of figured all this shit out, and not just him, the other guy came back too. Coincidentally, the guy who's
Elvis?
no, not yet, but I wouldn't be surprised to kind of start this year off. The guy who's famous for hacking. We were talking about him, the CIA, and saying he discovered a list of like a Starfleet crew. He's back on social media.
The British dude.
Yeah, the British dude. He's back on social media.
Gosh, I forgot.
And he's sharing
so
new information again. Isn't that odd? How
I forgot his
everyone's
name.
like,
yeah.
What is his name? But I saw a video of him talking about like, hey guys,
Yeah.
it's about time I come back.
I'm back.
Yeah, it's just
I need
everyone's
those
like
views.
just coming back all of a sudden. It's so exciting. And again, I just want to reiterate, like, even you don't believe this stuff, like this is the best science fiction stories ever, in my opinion. And that
keeps things interesting.
It's so interesting, man. On top of like everything that's happening,
I'm very objective, but I also like to keep an open mind because there's a lot of noise, and a lot of it is just noise. But some of it might get past you in its facts.
Yeah,
best example I can think of that, and I'll just leave this as a cliffhanger, maybe a future topic.
Yeah,
Skinwalker Ranch.
Oh yeah, we got to talk about it at some point.
That's not noise.
Gary McKinnon, that's the guy.
That's it.
Gary McKinnon, he's back. All of a sudden, he wants to be on YouTube. like of all the
he
times.
He found more NASA computers with no password set.
Yeah,
just default passwords. User 123.
Yeah, he recently came back to social media, and he talked about on X particularly. He posted on January 18th indicating that he's back in circulation in relation to UFO discussions.
Yeah.
Wants his time to shine again. But that's
he just to set the record straight that he didn't actually hack anything.
Yeah, can you clarify on that? Like the common misconception about it?
So there's a lot of people that want to push a story, take his story and kind of churn it into their own and be like, oh, this guy hacked stuff and he figured out all this secret UFO stuff that NASA was hiding in their computers. So that's not true. He was an IT guy at the time, so he knew, how to get into networks and stuff. When I say get into networks, I'm not talking about hacking. Networks are all open. So you can, if you know the IP of a network or, like the gateway, how to get in, you can get in. Now, if the people running the network did their job right, they secured it to block any non-whitelisted IPs. They have firewalls, what have you, right? That's how normal organizations run stuff. As we know, government organizations are not very normal.
Yeah.
Elon Musk knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So at the time, NASA left their networks wide open, no security. even their computers had no passwords. They had like default passwords. So you could just go in and be like default or admin.
One, two,
You could
three.
use that as like the username.
Yeah.
So when he went into the NASA network, which was wide open, him being an IT guy, he just went, oh, it's wide open. Okay.
Yeah.
Walks in, all the computers are unsecure. There was no proper security protocols in place to like password protect using like, a minimum password of X amount of characters and things like that. So he just basically looked around. It was wide open. So he just looked around and found spreadsheets and all kinds of stuff, but he never actually hacked. And that's why the UK didn't allow, even though the UK has extradition treaty with the US, the UK determined there was no crime committed.
Yeah.
The computers were wide open. He didn't actually hack or do anything nefarious.
Yeah. Just logged in.
It's like if if you went to, I don't know, the NASA, the JPL in Pasadena, right? It's a secure building, but if for whatever reason the gate's wide open or there is no gate, there's no security guard, front doors are wide open, the key card readers are turned off, there's nobody around, and there's like sensitive documents just sitting on the front lobby desk and on the chairs and stuff like that. Are you really committing a crime? There's nothing there. Like, So that's why Obama cannot. He tried to really hard, but he couldn't get him extradited because.
Yeah. But the interesting thing, just to clarify before we end it, there were three main things that he's famous for during that login session. The first one, he saw an image of a cigar-shaped UFO. By now, I feel like everyone's seen it, right? But it was on the NASA computer, and he said that there was an attempt to blur out the thing, right? So that's the first major one. The second one is the one that is the most famous, where there was a list of non-terrestrial officers, right? And so, when you see non-terrestrial, he concluded, right? He interpreted the evidence as if it was some kind of secret space program that is not based on Earth, right? That alone is so fun to toy with. Take it as you will, right? And then again, the third one is what we're hearing a lot now: the suppressed technology, about anti-gravity device, that the government is hiding a lot of secret technology, right? Which is probably what we're seeing right now in New Jersey. I think a large percentage of that, again, is.
So I'll debunk all three.
Do it.
So he actually has interviews where he himself says people are taking stuff out of context, and he clarified the first one with the finding, an image that they attempted to blur out. That didn't happen. He actually explains it in an interview where he says at that time when he was getting into their network, the network connection was super slow.
Yeah. So
he found an image that he was trying to download, but it was taking too long. It was too big of an image.
Yeah.
And at that time, I guess he had 56K or 28K or whatever. So all he saw was a compressed blur version of it because he couldn't get like the whole thing down. His computer was too slow. So he gave up on it because it would take too long to download.
Yeah.
And he saw like a blurred, compressed version of it that he couldn't really make out. And he says he wished if he had more time, he could have downloaded. That's pretty much what he said in an interview. So there was nobody trying to like blur it to block him from seeing it. That's just stuff people make up.
Yeah.
He himself said this. He straight up said, no, that didn't happen. What happened was it was an image that was in some raw format. I don't even think it was JPEG. So it was too big for him to download. So then he went looking for other files because he realized he wouldn't be able to get the image. So the second debunk is the list. He explained actually again in interviews in his own words that the list was just a spreadsheet he found, like an Excel spreadsheet with a list of, roster list of people and their ranks and stuff. And the whole like non-terrestrial thing, that could be anything. It could be, hey, this is somebody that's not attached to a base in the U.S. It could be somebody that's overseas, or maybe somebody that's attached to, the Navy or something like that. So they're not even based on any Air Force bases. It might be somebody who's with, I don't know, the Fifth Fleet or something like that. So there was no like proof there that these guys were like space generals running, in spaceships or anything like that. It was just a spreadsheet that really didn't mean anything beyond what was on the spreadsheet. And then what was the third one that you mentioned? I think that one
anti-gravity
also was,
technology.
oh yeah, I believe he said in interviews that he never found anything like that. That was just the internet changed his story around to make it seem compelling. Yeah. But he's got pretty good interviews that you can watch if you dig into them.
Yeah,
there's nothing to dig into. You could watch his interviews, and he straight up kind of laughs at everything. He's like, "No, I never said those things. This is what I saw."
It sounds like they got to him. All right. It'll be interesting to see what this return is for. I mean, he doesn't seem like he wants any fame or fortune from any of this. I mean, he disappeared for a long time.
Yeah, went back to IT, I guess.
Yeah, I just like went back to fixing computers. And then to come back at this time, I'd be interested to see what he says. It's like all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It was totally true, man. I had to say it, man. They were going to kill me. Who knows? We'll see. It'll be interesting.
Maybe.
I'm just glad he's back.
Well, that's the other thing, too. Yeah. So I will say this, though, to keep the open mind part of it.
Yeah.
It was very odd that the Obama administration tried for, I don't know how many years. They really went out of their way to try to get him.
If he had nothing, said nothing, what's the point?
Even the UK didn't understand. They were like, "Yo, like no crime was committed. Why do you guys have this hard on for this dude, for this kid, basically, right?" I think he was in his 20s at the time, and they acted like if this guy had, I don't know, committed a terrorist act or something, right? Or if the guy had infiltrated the NSA and deleted all their favorite, cat videos or something. Like they were just genuinely pissed, to an insane degree.
Yeah.
And it could be something as simple as they just wanted to make a example out of him, just in case there were other people that might, if you're the government and you go, "Wow, this guy just walked around and there was open computers everywhere."
Yeah.
We most likely have more agencies besides NASA, Department of Labor, Department of Energy, maybe even some parts of the FBI where people are just dumb and don't secure computers, right? So maybe they want to make an example out of them, because if we let it go, we're going to have a ton of people all over the world probing for open computers, and then we're going to have a huge problem in our hands. That is the most logical thing. Could also be ego. It's like nobody hacks the US or whatever, which doesn't make sense, because nowadays the US recently has allowed, China, Russia, and independent criminal groups from around the world to hack the shit out of us. And it's like, oh, they got us again.
Yeah.
Dang.
Next time.
So I don't understand why they would go after this one guy in the UK, but then they let all these other individuals and groups get away with stuff. So maybe there is something there. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out. All right. So Leo, thanks for coming on. I talked to you all day, but it's good to let others inside your crazy brain, as well as mine. Like, this is a part where I don't really share this to other people usually. This is when they start looking at me weird. But it's still relevant nowadays. It's hard not to talk about. And hopefully the listeners out there enjoyed the first amendment.
Yeah. A lot of rabbit holes down there. Just depends how many hours in the day you have.
Oh my God. This is just an intro to UFO craziness.
Yeah. Some of them are interesting. Yeah. We should definitely do something about Project Stargate.
Yeah, dude.
And
how you like the fact that they named the AI program recently after Stargate?
Stargate. I saw that and I just get my eyebrow raised. I was like,
"What's going on, dude?
Huh? Yeah.
Stargate." Like, that movie was one of my favorite movies, actually. And what was that movie
just saw
about?
It again the other day.
Yeah. A portal into an alien universe. I need to watch
Yeah,
it.
alien tech that they found in an excavation, which is what what's his name? John Lazar?
Yeah.
Bob Lazar.
Bob
Sorry.
Lazar.
Bob Lazar talked about that when he was Area 51 or whatever it was called. S3 or whatever.
Yeah.
When he asked about where they found that, he says that he was kind of told off the record archaeological sites. This is where we found alien tech. Bob Lazar, he said some stuff in the 80s that got verified true now.
Yeah.
So I go based on data. So I remember seeing Bob Lazar and hearing about him in the 90s and stuff. Just brushed it off. Just crazy guy, whatever, like most people. Once I saw that some of the stuff he talked about back then is proven true now, it goes, okay, that's not a coincidence.
Yeah.
Don't believe in coincidences. Coincidences don't really exist.
Right. So for those to prep for,
there.
Prep for the next episode when I do this with Leo. Watch Stargate if you haven't. Rewatch Stargate. Right. Awesome movie. A lot of Stargate being
awesome
mentioned right now. I don't think it's a coincidence. It's like, what the fuck? Stargate? People haven't talked about Stargate for like 40 years. And then within the last year and a half, everyone's saying Stargate this and that. And then, now I'm seeing on X, like all these like psionics. We're talking about psionics being able to open portals. Like I'm seeing it. Like, what the fuck? Why is everyone all of a sudden talking about this? So it's good to kind of just pay attention to it.
Want to know more about psionics, you got to dig into Project Stargate from the
That's
CIA.
what I mean, right? It just seems
That's
to
some crazy stuff.
Freaking
Monroe Institute.
We'll talk about this next time. The people catch up. You guys catch
Project
up.
Gateway.
All right, you guys been sleeping. All right, stop going on TikTok. Do some real shit. Yeah. Get into these conspiracies. Be ahead of the curve. All right. See you guys all next week. Want sharper focus by day and deeper sleep by night? So now is the perfect time to optimize your mental performance with Magic Mind, exclusive 24-hour pack. For the first time ever, the focus and sleep shots are bundled together at 45% off, but only through my special link. So stay sharp, stay calm, and wake up refreshed. Whether you're tackling big goals or simply want to feel your best, Magic Mind's doctor-validated formula enhances clarity, reduces stress, and supports deep restorative sleep. Make 2025 your year of mental wealth. Don't just push through the day, thrive in it. Get the Focus and Sleep bundle now at 45% off through my link. themagicmind.com/GDUJAN. Check it out.